Water, yes.
I get Tristan hitting us with the text.
It's so helpful. So I'm so used to like two water or two springs now.
It really
Just
is.
that one.
Bloomberg style.
But they're little.
I think when you're ready, when you leave, you can just hit this button. That should. Sure.
And now, can I close it?
Yeah, you don't need to do this. So when you're ready, you can just open this bar and it'll.
Then we have a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay.
I need water.
I might be able to log back on at like 45.
Yeah, I honestly hope for.
Okay, okay, good.
Hope
I
we're
do
not still
too.
going to 8:45.
Yeah.
Water.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
It's a sweeper in the audience. You see that?
Excuse me?
There's a sweeper.
Colleen is on as well.
Oh,
Just so you know.
Okay.
There's a what?
A sweeper.
A sleeper.
So, well, we can get started because we can get our quorum.
Community board 5 now.
No.
No.
She's a
An
sweeper.
applicant.
Sleeper. You know everybody on the board. You know that name.
I don't know. I forget. Remember.
Well, how do you remember the two?
I think we can get going.
Yes. In brain.
Ben is on from Simone's office.
Okay. Do I have to do anything? Speak. Are we,
You're good to go.
we're good? Okay, thank you. This is the March 24th meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5 Transportation and Environment Committee. I'm David Sigmund, Chair, joined by Samir Lavingia, Vice Chair. Any items voted on at this meeting will appear at the full CB5 board meeting on Thursday, April 10th. We have 4 items on the agenda today. First, a discussion with the Office of Assembly Member Tony Simone on their proposal for a permanent open street on Broadway between 35th and 36th Streets. Then we have a request from Coach Restaurant at 16 West 22nd Street for a parking regulation change to accommodate a dining out roadway cafe. We will then have a committee discussion on 2 bus stop applications and the process that we'll be using going forward on those applications. And finally, we have a discussion of the transportation and environment components of the Midtown South mixed use rezoning that the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee is taking the lead on. So with that, we'll take a quick attendance. You're up to
I'm Zool Zolkowitz.
Joel Maxman.
Amy Rowland.
Tristan Haas.
Nancy Gosho?
Do we have anybody TV?
Doesn't look like it.
No. Okay.
Someone raised their, Neil Miller raised their hand. Let me go put up there. 1 second, Neil, I'm coming.
Sorry. Did you promote
Yeah.
yourself?
I promoted him, but I'll join him. Yeah.
Neil, are you there?
Hi, yep, Neil Miller.
Samir Lavingia.
So what do we need for quorum?
Let me double check. So we need 8 people. And we have,
Really?
well, Neil is. Sure.
You have Tiffany online.
Okay, great. 1, 2, 3. We have 8. No, one,
Tiffany's waiting.
we
7
have
here,
7.
7 here.
No,
2
yeah, we have
online.
8. We're good.
Okay, great. So before we jump into the agenda, I'd like to see if any members of the public or any members of the committee have new business they'd like to raise. We're doing this first so members of the public don't have to wait through all of the agenda items if they're here to raise any new topics. So if anybody's on the call or here at the meeting that wants to raise new business, let me know. Okay then. So here's the order of business. The presenters will walk us through their presentations, packages. Members of the committee can then ask questions or make comments. After that, we'll take comments from the public. There's no time limit on comments, but we ask that you keep things succinct and avoid repetition. After all public comment has been received, we'll enter the committee business session, where only committee members will discuss the matter with no further input from the applicant or the public unless requested by the chair. Finally, if appropriate, we'll craft a motion and a resolution and take a vote. And after the last agenda item, we will adjourn the meeting. So with that, we'll go to Ben Lowenstein with Assembly Member Tony Simone's office.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. So yeah, I wanted to come speak with all of you about our proposal to make Broadway from 35th Street to 36th Street a permanent open street. As many of you, I'm sure, are aware, it was a temporary open street this winter from December to January, and it was a great success. Well liked by, pedestrians, residents, everybody alike. We wrote to the DOT about this, about making this a permanent open street. I believe the CB5 was shared on that letter. We also had a press conference about it. And, we'd love to hear any thoughts, concerns about our proposal and see if we can get your support for it.
I think we supported it at the time, and I don't remember any issues being raised, but if anybody has questions or
This is-
concerns. Yes.
This is state funding, state?
No, I believe this is just done through the city, but I can get you an exact
Hey,
answer.
hi, it's Colleen from DOT. This is
Oh.
all a city funded initiative.
Okay. But Tony Simone is supporting it because,
Well, we, represent the area. Yes, but this was supported by the council member too.
And Colleen has, or Ben, has DOT taken a position on this yet, either way, or?
Well, we reviewed all applications for open streets from stakeholders. And I'm not sure if this came before us. Can you let me know, Ben, if you reached out to our Open Streets partners? Our Open Street colleagues?
No, we had just sent a letter directly to the commissioner. I don't believe that we went through the Open Street task force.
Okay. All right. So what I'll do, I'll follow up with my colleagues tomorrow to confirm if they received the letter, and I'll let you know what our position is, and if there is a deadline, and if the deadline has been met, and whether you can apply for next year. So let me follow up with the division, and I will get back to you and the community board.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't think we have, we'd like to hear DOT's review, I think, before we take a final position on it, but, in discussions at the time, that the assembly member held the press conference and issued the letter, we were generally supportive, so if there's anything specific that comes out of DOT's look at it, then we'll study that a little closer. Yeah, Nancy.
do you think everyone in this committee on our board knows what open streets are? Does everyone know? It's closed to traffic, right? Completely closed to traffic.
Yes.
Vehicular cars,
Yeah,
buses,
as is the
trucks.
block to the south of it. now, so.
not bikes.
I have a question. How would this as an open street tie into the DOT's Broadway vision plan?
Colleen?
To you, Dan and/or Colleen.
So, this is a great question, because I know we've done a lot of work on Broadway Vision. And again, because this is a new topic that's on the agenda, I would have to consult with our public realm division and the Open Street team to see if this is possible and what what issues may come up on this, or if there are any issues. And, again, I'll follow up with the community board before any decision is made. We, you know,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and the other piece of this are the two squares, which I think are a separate effort, right? So whatever the plan is for those and how it would coordinate with this.
Greeley Square and
Harold.
Harold
yeah.
Square, the two bow tie squares,
Yep.
triangles, really.
Right, right.
yeah. And I think it's important to note that when we approve, and if we approve an open street, letters are sent out to the community boards, the elected officials, and any stakeholders in the area, and of course, the local precincts. So we do our outreach to those affected by it.
Samir?
Can you, maybe a question for Colleen? What do you mean by approve an open street? And like to Ben, are you asking for some like partner to apply for an open street, or are you asking for the DOT to do something more like a plaza that we've seen elsewhere? I feel like there's a little bit of confusion.
Well, of CB5, we're just, asking for a letter or possibly a resolution in support. I believe I would have to get into the specifics about the next steps for the process of actually making it an open street. But that I don't think would relate to CB5 too much at the moment.
Yeah, and Samir, again, another great question, because with open streets applications, we require a stakeholder that would apply and would be involved with the maintenance of the street. Again, there's a lot of specifics that's needed for an open street. For example, why is it being requested? Who's the maintenance partner? What are the hours the streets are going to be closed and open? So these are things that really need to thought out. We're just not going to close the street because we get a letter to do so. We need to have an applicant that applies for the open street.
Yeah, I don't believe there is one at the moment, but we'll be looking for that and updating. DOT will receive that, and we'll update the community board once we have that.
Question,
Yes.
is this 35th to 36th within the boundaries of the 34th Street bid?
That's a question. And have
Did you hear that, Ben? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's within-
yes, it is. Yeah.
Would you be looking to them as a maintenance partner, or do they know that this is coming?
Have you spoken with them?
Yeah, we have. We don't believe that they would be the applicant for this. But we're gonna keep looking.
Charles?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So my question is, what's the rationale for having the open street in the first place? Is this something that Tony Simone's office came up with, or did you guys get letters from the community, that area, requesting this type of thing? How did the idea come about initially? And then the other questions are to do with accessibility. Just wondering if you guys reach out to paratransit, how is Accessorize going to drop an elderly person or a disabled person to a business or a residential building when the street is closed, and also access for emergency vehicles? Thank you.
So Charles and Colleen, let me answer the access in terms of for an open street. So paratransit definitely has access in terms of picking up and dropping off a resident, as well as emergency response vehicles. They have access to travel on the open street while the open street is in operation. But again, you would need a maintenance partner that would be at that site to move barricades to allow the emergency response vehicles to go through.
And Ben, can you pick up the first part?
Yeah. This was chosen in due to the success that we, saw with the temporary open street, the pilot program, over the winter. In general, the, assembly member, sees a lot of benefits with open streets. And this has, been studied that there are numerous benefits, with open streets. They improve, storefront vacancy rates, businesses, in the around open streets, do much better. And it's just a lot better for, the quality of life for people who live near them. So we did receive a lot of support for this open street and for making it permanent. And that is why we chose to select this area specifically.
And just so you know, the application deadline, you must have to apply by March 31st, 2025. That's the deadline for the Open Street academic year for 2025, 2026, just so you know. So I think you passed that deadline. We passed that deadline, Ben.
Got it. Thank you.
Did you have another, Nancy?
How would the assembly member feel about having open streets from 42nd Street to 14th Street?
59th Street.
That's
Is that
bold.
something that the council member, I'm sorry, the assembly member would support?
I would have to speak with him and get back to you. That is a lot of open streets. But let me see what he says about that.
And Colleen, what would be the strategy for us to push for that?
Well, we supported the Broadway vision,
Right.
the DDC piece, at least
Right.
from 30th to 40th,
Right.
which has elements of all these issues in it.
We're in expansionist mode here, so
Yeah.
Colleen, any help you can give us on strategy, we'd appreciate it.
We want open space.
Well, you know
Yes.
what? I'm always open to being a strategist to Community Board 5, just so you know.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think. I guess this is a comment. Can I ask can I make a comment? I don't really like the partner program Open Streets. I think if we do eventually support something like this, I'd prefer to support a DOT plaza that doesn't require, like, it's more similar to what we approved by DDC rather than looking for a partnership and all that stuff. I would rather just have it be a infrastructure change than anything else.
And what is the one in front of Macy's? Is that an open street with Macy's or, I mean?
I think that's a
That's a plaza. That's a plaza. And even with a plaza, we would still require a maintenance partner, just so you know.
Got it.
And then if something is happening with Herald and Greeley Squares, what do we think that's gonna be?
That's a question. for
Yeah,
Colleen.
Colleen,
Colleen.
is that a DOT question or?
What do you mean if something has happened with Herald Square and Greenlee Square? Because the 34th Street Partnership, that's they maintain that space.
And I thought there were proposals to do an upgrade. I mean, I guess I was assuming it becomes a DDC DOT project, but maybe not.
It becomes, if it becomes permanent, it becomes a DOT DDC capital project. Correct.
Okay. Charles, you had another question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up. Sorry, I forgot two crucial questions. So I was wondering what accessibility treatments will be done to these open streets. As you know, some of these plazas can be very hectic for people with visual and low vision or blind to navigate. And I know in the last meeting, 2024, in November the 25th or 4th, I think it was 5th, there was talk about treatments being used in shared, pedestrian and car areas of the city. I'm just wondering what treatments can be done to avoid these pedestrian deserts for people with mobility disabilities, and also will there be any bollards installed to protect pedestrians from any terroristic attacks? As we know, with the truck that hit all those cyclists down on the believe it was along the Hudson River a few years back. What are you going to do to protect any sort of futuristic terrorist attacks, since that would be pretty much a soft target for anyone just to ram through, or even to do a heist and rob a business by just mounting the sidewalk? So I'm just wondering about that too. Thank you.
Hi, Charles. So our open streets are, we don't install permanent bollards. What we do is, again, we have a partner that is involved in the maintenance, and there would be barricades at both ends of the streets to allow for, access a ride to go through the streets to pick up or drop off a resident, or for emergency response vehicles to travel on. So there's no permanent installation of bollards. Again, a lot of the operation is relied on the maintenance partner or the stakeholder to oversee that particular street. And again, with a lot of our projects, we do look at the ADA requirements and accessibility. So we are conscious of that.
And I do want to mention, Charles, when it comes to accessibility for blind people and, that pedestrian flow, one of the great benefits of an open street is the sidewalks surrounding it. You've got people being able to use that open street, as for, walking transportation. They are able to get off the sidewalk and clear up a bit of that congestion on the sidewalk. So there are some great benefits for people with vision impairment.
Okay, anything else? Anybody in the room? Any new arrivals want to ask? Okay, well, thanks very much, Ben. And I guess we'll stay in touch with you and DOT as this progresses, and we'll be happy to jump into it at the appropriate time.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later.
Thank you. So the next item is a request from Coke Korean Steakhouse at 16 West 22nd Street to, I guess, alter a no standing parking regulation in front of their restaurant in order to accommodate a dining out roadway cafe.
But there was someone from the public who I think wanted to comment on the last item.
There was?
Yeah.
Still?
Damayanti, do you want to comment on what we're talking about, that open street? Sorry we missed you originally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
I think I pressed mute right as she unmuted because I wanted to unmute her. Damayanti, do you mind just checking if you're unmuted?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so about the open street here, I hope Ben has not left already, or if he has, then we'll have to talk to him later. This is about 35th to 36th Street. 35th Street feeds into Herald Square, which is right at the Macy's. And we are a very small group of volunteers who have tried to be doing this campaign. For the last couple of years, we've been working on it. We had already presented as CB5 our idea about car-free Broadway, which is, we call it Broadway Linear Park, which is car-free between Columbus Circle to Union Square. I heard earlier somebody was discussing about what about from Union Square to 34th Street, car-free. DOT has been doing bits and pieces based on, as I understand at this point, is based on the application by some private group who will say, let's have a car-free block here and there. And then, of course, as I heard, that they have to also pay for maintenance and other things, services and other things. We are a group of volunteers. We don't own any property along here. And this was our idea. I, as an architect and urban planner, and we had Andrew Hyatt, who also you have met before. We have talked to Paul Zolkowitz few times, and we have presented at CB5 couple of times. And every time we spoke at CB5, I made a presentation. We really got a lot of good response from the community and from the directors or from the attendees at CB5. So we would like to still keep pursuing this thing rather than do 2 blocks here, 2 blocks there, and then whenever it happens, whatever happens, we do hear from people that the car free is very important to the population here in New York. So our idea is that when we're doing this entire length, which is 2.3-mile long section of Broadway, we have like 5 different, as we call 5 squares, 5 acts along the way, starting at Union Square, then of course ending at Columbus Circle. And along there we have Madison Square, we have Herald Square, which has an extension into Greeley Square also. And then of course we go to Times Square. So we want to think about holistically. We've been working on the design ideas. In fact, we would like to come back and to CB5 again within next few weeks or maybe a month or whenever the opportunity is available to us. And we would like to show also some of the design concepts along the way, like what we want to propose at Greeley Square, Herald Square, Times Square. But the idea will be like the Broadway, entire Broadway becomes a destination, because Broadway is why people come to New York from outside. They come to Broadway theaters. And New Yorkers like to, of course, go to Broadway theaters, as well as we, especially with the South Midtown zoning change, we're going to have about 9,000 or 8,000 new residential places, which is going to increase the population a lot. And for every 10,000 population, the rule of thumb is that you need to have a lot of open space to support the services there, serve the people who are going to be living there. So the area of Broadway Linear Park is 7 acres. And the 7 acres will definitely be used by the people who are going to live there. We'll keep the bicycles, and we'll keep a lot of space for people who will live around there and who have different amenities there. And of course, it'll be open also to emergency vehicles. So that's a design we have presented before. As I said, we keep on working on the design. Now we're actually doing more of a conceptual work, what is going to happen at the square and what is going to happen at the typical block between the squares. Of course, we're calling the square act, 5 acts on Broadway.
Okay,
Thank you
well,
very
we'll-
much.
Yeah, and we'll be happy to have you guys back when you're ready to present your more detailed concept. But thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else on that subject, we'll move on to the coat application. Who's going to be presenting for coat?
Hello, hi, this is Alex Munoz. Jason Cho from my team has got a brief presentation, and between he and Brian Cohen from RPO and me, we will walk you through the slide.
Great, thanks.
Jason, yeah,
Or do you need slides or whatever ability to present?
yeah.
May I get access to present? It says. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. All right, can everyone see the slides here?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Alex, did you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Go, Jay, if you go to the,
Yeah.
go to the first slide. Yeah. Next slide. Oh. As I said, I'm Alex Munoz Suarez. I'm the COO and partner at Gracious Hospitality. And today I'm joined with Jason Cho, who's the general manager of Cote Korean Steakhouse on 22nd Street, 16 West 22nd. And Keelan Sleeper, who is also our director of project management and construction. And not listed on here is Brian Cohen, who is our expediter from RPO, who will be also sharing sharing some of the information on this deck. So Cote was founded by Simon Kim in 2017, and he's our CEO. It opened in the summer of 2017, and in that same year, we achieved many accolades, including being awarded a Michelin star shortly after we opened. And it's an award that we're very proud that after 7 years, hopefully 8, knock on wood, for 2025, that we've been able to maintain. And in fact, I think the board should know that it's the only steakhouse in New York City with a Michelin star. We have maintained especially during the COVID era, an outdoor dining structure from the summer of 2020, and it was demolished or brought down on Halloween of this past year, 2024. Jay, next slide. And so during that time, in the summer of last year, we've engaged RPO. Again, you'll hear from Brian probably after this slide, as well as Rockwell, our design agency, as well as Reply, on setting up the application based on the publicized or communicated New York City Department of Transportation rules. That was submitted at the end of July, just before the August 3rd, 2024 deadline. And then more recently, and the exact date is December 27th, 2024, we did receive a rejection from NYC DOT stating that there's an existing no standing 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. regulation that precludes our ability to erect this temporary roadway cafe in this location. And then more recently, we've been advised by RPO, our expediter, as well as Councilman Bochter's office, to seek a traffic regulation change in order to operate this amenity. And this is the first step we're taking to hopefully would require the resolution from CV5. Next slide.
So
Brian.
starting off, to introduce myself, my name is Brian Cohen, work at RPO and Alex covered that. We are consulting for Cote's dining out application. So I just wanted to take you guys a little through the history of the no standing nighttime regulation on West 22nd Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. So to start off, no standing 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. regulation was requested in 1995 by the community board due to quality of life problems stemming from local nightclubs within the area. According to the DOT, the original goal of the regulation was to make it inconvenient for the nightclub owners to park in the area and stay at the nightclubs until late hours. So along with the regulation change, the community board also requested a liquor license moratorium in October of 1997. Since the regulation change and liquor license moratorium was implemented, all of the targeted nightclubs have either relocated or closed. This regulation.
A little difficulty hearing you. I don't know if you can.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks.
Can you hear me? Okay.
That's right.
And I just wanted to. Okay. Do you want me to restart? Or?
No, that's fine. Yeah, we're reading along with you.
Okay. And to go. Just to make this clear, this regulation was strictly implemented to address quality of life issues that existed at the time, not today. Next slide.
Yeah, to give you a quick snapshot of our roadway cafe from the past, this is a photo of our previous dining structure. It was implemented during COVID, and this roadway cafe that existed from July of 2020 to, as Alex mentioned, Halloween Day on 2024. We were able to operate the area with no issues from the Department of Transportation or the Department of Buildings, Department of Health. We've maintained an A standard for our restaurants. New York Police Department, FDNY, and the community at large. And it's just become a critical revenue stream for the restaurant. As Alex mentioned, we've been able to maintain our restaurant's Michelin star standards while also maintaining staff members that we otherwise would have had to lay off during COVID. This was our lifeline during the COVID pandemic, and it continues to be a revenue source since last year. Now, some of the negative impacts that it has on Cote's business in the community, after we shut down the Roadway Cafe with the new dining out program, it's an incredible place for new diners to experience our restaurant. The challenge is if we close down the structure, we'll lose about 8 months of outdoor dining revenue if this is denied, and then we'll have significant financial losses that impacts our business. We do have 15 dedicated staff members that are staffed for just the purpose of outdoor dining, 10 front of house staff and 5 kitchen/prep staff. since Halloween, we have maintained their status with us at the restaurant in hopes that we will be able to open for outdoor dining again. And then one of the main benefits that Korean Steakhouse is able to implement, typically in other Korean barbecue settings, the indoor grilling happens indoors. This does exclude immunocompromised guests, not only through COVID, but that just have other health complications. The outdoor dining structure did allow people to maintain a safe distance from our staff. Typically, Korean barbecue is done grilled tableside right in front of the guest. Our outdoor structure actually grill right on the side next to the tables to maintain space. And we've had a handful of guests, especially older guests who or in the community, that were able to go back into dining at restaurants, and the outdoor dining structure just gave us that lifeline. In terms of the culinary scene, Cote is definitely one of the crown jewels. As Alex mentioned, this is one of the only Michelin-starred steakhouses in New York, and it's also our outdoor dining structure. Our revenue center allows us to maintain our 4-course prix fixe menu at under $100. And as food costs increase, that's not something. If you look through the list of Michelin-starred restaurants in the city, it's hard to find a restaurant of our caliber that can offer a 4-course meal for under $100. We do it for $78, and outdoor dining has allowed us to retain that price point. And lastly, just limiting the restaurant's operations, just indoor and sidewalk dining, it does reduce our seating, and it just creates hardship for our restaurant community, and it just does not allow us to open our restaurant to all members of the community, right? Okay, our regulation change request. I'll just present the first slide. First part, we're requesting that the no standing restriction is outdated, and it limits our ability to operate in the same way that we already have during the past 4.5 years. Again, we want to be able to offer this dining amenity to our entire community. And as I mentioned before, our immunocompromised guests are regulars to the restaurant who we started welcoming in since July 2020, and overall the city at large. And we do believe that it not only brings our community, but people from around the world do come specifically our restaurant to visit us. And lastly, we've invested a ton of capital to improve the dining structure, not only staff members, but we have different uniform for the staff during the summertime and the wintertime. And we've invested these resources and have continued to maintain these standards for the past 4.5 years. And lastly, the 15 members that we've retained on payroll, we've been trying our best to allocate their time to our resources in hopes that outdoor dining and our Roadway Cafe would be open to us at this time. And I'm going to pass it over to Brian just to talk about the logistics for the community board.
All right. So can you guys hear me better now?
Yes, yep.
Okay. So we asked the community board to also consider that our request for a regulation change in front of Cote will not affect the original intent to limit late night transient parking, as the parking lane in front of Cote will be blocked off by a Roadway Cafe. Also, as the community board may be aware, there is a precedent for this type of request within this area. In 2019, Dough Donuts, located on West 19th Street, requested a community board resolution to support their request for a parking regulation change to remove the no standing nighttime regulation to accommodate overnight deliveries. It's a little bit different than a Roadway Cafe, but it was changed in that regard. The request was ultimately approved, and the no standing zone reverted to its original regulation, which would be a commercial vehicles only zone in Cote's case. Cote would be able to operate their cafe within the commercial vehicles only zone if the no standing regulation was removed. Also, in the CB5 resolution supporting Dough Donuts' request for a regulation change, the community board stated, there are, in the present day, no bars and clubs on the block in question, negating the purpose and need of the sign's original installation. So, next slide is just the proposed structure for the
dining out roadway cafe. So the white outline is the original cafe that was in place during COVID. And then the red outline is the new dining out cafe. So it would be smaller and take up less space of the roadway. And then next slide. And then next slide is just the pictures of the current regulations. So you see the 3 hours commercial metered parking zone, commercial vehicles only, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday, and then the no standing 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. all days. So I believe that's it, unless anyone from code has any more input regarding the design or the regulations.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of background that's really outside the scope of this committee. And then I've got a couple of specific questions. But so all of these nighttime regulations relate to something that is covered by our state licenses and permits committee, which handles liquor license applications and now cannabis applications. But we have something called a restricted licensing area, and it controls nighttime activity on, I guess, 19th, 20th, and maybe 21st from Broadway to 6th. And it's part of a very large community effort that, coordinates all of these activities. So I guess this is a way of saying that it's a larger issue than just our committee. We would want to bring the SLAP committee, the state licenses committee, into discussion to understand, what their goals would be for something like this. Originally, when we heard about this, we thought the restriction, the no standing restriction, was somehow just in front of your restaurant, but it's not. It's all over both sides of that block. So I think the other piece of this is that if we're going to, undertake something like this, we're not going to do it on a one-off basis for one operator on a block where there were multiple dining out facilities during COVID. So it certainly should be coordinated on a block-wide effort with the other, your fellow restaurant operators on the block. We would need NYPD to weigh in on this as well, because they close, I think, 20th or 21st Street at night. So there's a lot of parking coordination that goes on in this part of town that's a much wider issue than just the 25 feet in front of your restaurant. So I don't know that we're I'm happy if anybody wants to ask any questions, on our side or from the public, but it's a much larger issue than the way it's being presented here, both on our side and for other, city agencies like NYPD. I mean, we really would have to take this on in a much broader way than your request.
Okay. Yeah, just to make it clear, the intent of this request was not to get rid of the late night transient parking, but if you would like to go that route, that is fine. But the original intent of this request was just outside of COAT, just to change it, just to remove the no standing zone.
Well, I guess that's what I was referring to. Yeah. The problem is that no standing zone exists on both sides of the block, all the way around the block, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I just want to. Okay,
Yeah, no,
go
I
ahead.
appreciate
Sorry.
that. I mean, I may have misstated the technical aspect. It would help us if you could also email this presentation to what is it? Office
at
cb5.org.
Okay. We can
So we
definitely
can
do that.
Yeah, and then we can share it with our state licenses committee and see if there's some broader path forward here. And it would help
we were originally supposed to present to the state licenses and permits committee, but then they sent us here. We originally were supposed to present through the state licenses and permits committee, but we were originally redirected to transportation and environment committee. So yeah.
Yeah, no, we had the conversation with them at the time, but we didn't realize the scope of the request. So yeah, I mean, ultimately it has to be this committee that would waive the parking regulation. But we're going to want to hear from them on the broader nightlife issues, NYPD,
Mhm.
your other restaurants on the block. It just is in a bigger context, so we would need to understand that.
Understood, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
And would normally have a posting and a public,
Yeah, we'd have to do the whole thing.
Just a sidewalk question.
Yeah.
The transportation type question. So the plans that you showed, the picture that you showed for the previous iteration of the shed looked like it extended somewhat onto the sidewalk, and one of the other pictures also showed freestanding tables and chairs on the sidewalk alongside the building line. Is that going to be the same in this new iteration, or will the shed be solely in the street bed and no more sidewalk tables?
So Jay, do you
Can
want to
you
go back to slide?
Diagram.
Yeah.
Hold on, sorry.
And just to further clarify, we did post for this meeting. So the notices were posted for this meeting as well.
Okay.
That's the picture I was talking about.
That was the old one.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
that's the old one.
The
So
plan
if you
for
go
the
to the new one, new diagram. Yeah, so that'll be fully on the curb, fully in the curb lane.
And no more sidewalk tables.
Following the DOT regulations, correct.
Yeah,
Sidewalk. No, sidewalk tables are being shown in that plan, 4 of them,
yeah,
everybody,
They're
4
in
are
the-
being shown.
They're in the street.
yeah.
No, they're on the sidewalk.
No, there's 4 sidewalk tables as well. We're currently talking to the DOT about the sidewalk dining out application.
Okay, and that's not the subject of this.
That's not the subject of this.
But yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
no.
roadway structure,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
roadway structure is the topic of this.
correct. Yeah, the one above that with the
Right,
full
well, I guess
Hollywood
if
view.
there's some kind of revocable consent for those, we. review
Yes,
it
there
as
is a revocable consent. Yeah.
well. Okay.
Thank you.
And you never, there was no DOT review of this plan, right? It got shunted to this issue, and whether it complies with their program or not, that hasn't been decided, right?
There was DOT review of the plan originally, but they reviewed it stating, hey, we can't have this in no standing zones. So they recommended to us to go to the community board, get a resolution, get a regulation change.
So
Okay.
it's Colleen from DOT. So we did review the plans, and I'm told that we wouldn't remove the overnight regs unless the CB supports removal for the
Yep.
full block phase. That's what it is.
Oh, for the full block, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if that's agreed upon, then we can move forward with reviewing the application. But we would need support from the CB to remove the reg. We understand that the regs were installed in the 90s because of the nightlife issues that the area was experiencing. And that, of course, things might have changed. So that's why it's good that if you're going to have a discussion with the SLA and with NYPD to determine that if these regs are still needed or if they should be removed and updated with current parking regulations that's within the neighborhood.
Right, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, it is in the RLA, right?
No, it's, I think the RLA.
It says 22nd, I mean, I have the document. It
Oh,
says
you have it
22nd
right?
Street on here.
Oh.
Manhattan Community Board 5 establishes a projected license area to include 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd Street.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yep.
but, so it isn't RLA, aside from the RLA thing, because I'm on the subcommittee, I'm also kind of, but I don't know how much, on the task force for reassessing, like whether the RLA is, like what's going on with that. I don't know, a lot about how that's kind of gone. I know that Yaron Noti Victor, the recording secretary for the board, but for SLAP, he's in charge of that task force. So, I mean, he's probably someone to talk to in relation to this, or, like if this is part of it. But I mean, on the other hand, none of this is actually covered in the RLA stuff because this is all kind of COVID related, isn't it? I mean, the
Well, we're
RLA.
past that now. Now
Yeah.
we're back. Now we're back to the RLA question of like, do we, because we're not just acting as the T&E committee. So we were not, and this is part of why there was a discussion before it came to us about who should hear this first. So, the idea would be to coordinate with SLAP on the RLA aspect of it. Because the last thing we would want to do is agree to waive this nighttime parking restriction and then find out that we've somehow contributed to issues on 20th or 21st Street, generally the RLA operation. So it's all got to be coordinated.
David, just had a, for the applicant, what kind of timeline do you think we're looking at in terms of this process?
For us?
For us? So the start date for the dining out program is April 1st. So we are trying to get this.
Not
Sorry?
If we're sending it back to Slack.
I mean, I don't know. I have to talk to Janice. I don't know if it's a hearing or, as Christopher was suggesting, it's a discussion with, the RLA task force.
So we couldn't say like we would talk about this next full board.
No. Yeah, because I don't think we're taking a vote here to approve something without having spoken to SLAP about it. And I did try and get the conversation to kind of start there on the whole RLA operating question, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted it to start here because the issue ultimately was the parking issue. So it's a little bit of a ping pong game, but we'll get that resolved.
Colleen, if DOT would agree, would it be possible to just change the regulation in front of COAT?
Unfortunately, we wouldn't, but you know what? I was just thinking, if your restaurant can operate on a conditional basis, which is what we've been granting. I'm actually putting together an email asking my colleague if that's possible.
Yes, that would be fantastic if we can operate on a conditional
Yeah.
basis while this all gets sorted.
Right,
So-
exactly.
Yeah.
Would that go to SLAP who reviews these restaurant applications?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Well, so our state license committee is reviewing the open dining application. So if it's a conditional, would it go to them as part of the standard process for these applications?
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you answer that question first? And then we'll be happy to deal with the aftermath of that with the other committee and yeah.
And Colleen, just one more thing. I just also wanted to state that if we are able to operate conditionally, it would not affect the parking within the area. I just want to make that clear for everyone.
Well, you know what? Let me confirm with my colleagues before I tell you whether it will or will not before I
Okay.
give you a response.
No, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, but I will have them reach out to your team tomorrow to discuss
All right.
the details.
That would be
Okay?
fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, so let's start there. And then if we need to take on the larger issue, which would also be a discussion with SLAP, then we'll do that.
Charles has his hand raised.
Okay, Charles?
Yes, hi, thank you, Chair. I do have some question for the applicant, if you don't mind. I went down to the site myself, and I'm wondering, I have some confusion here. Right next to the restaurant, there's a building attached to the restaurant. I'm sorry, some units, and I'm not too sure. Are they apartments or are they offices? Because I've been given conflicting information whether those are residential units or not. And the other thing is, I would like to know the open dining. Do you plan? What are the times of operation? Because I spoke to your staff, and your kitchen closes at 11:30 at night, Monday to Friday, and they did tell me that if diners are still there, they can still carry on eating and drinking, even though the kitchen is closed. And also on the weekend, they told me that there's something called late night service, and that the kitchen closes at 1:30 in the morning, and people still are at the restaurant all the way till 3 in the morning, drinking and having a good time, even though the kitchen is closed. So I'm just wondering, will those, if they're in the outdoor dining, are they going to be past a certain time? How do you see
So-
the operating times? Thank you.
So I can answer this. There are rules attached to outdoor dining within the code that states that that diners need to leave at a certain time. They would abide by those rules. And I do not believe it goes past 12, if I have to be frank. But I
And
can
Charles,
fact check that.
Just to answer the building, it is an office building. It is our existing landlord. And it's all offices, office tenants.
Okay, Is there
Hey,
anybody else?
it's Colleen again. Can I ask one question, just to clarify? If we are able to allow Coat to operate on the conditional basis until the CB resolves this, is the CB fine with this? I just want to know if the community board is fine with this.
Yeah, I mean, if that's part of your
Yeah.
regular process,
Okay.
then it would go to the SLAP committee for,
Mhm.
you know, review, and then we would take on the larger issue with them. That would be fine.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, I would be okay with whatever SLAP decides on that, but
Well, it's only conditional though.
yeah, exactly. I mean, just because my instinct in general is not to like go with conditional approvals, but I'm not on SLAP, so that's not my call.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that would go to them is the conditional, and then the larger issue, we'd have to go, you know, take a step back. and see.
Because I agree with you that I think it's a larger, more complicated issue.
Yeah, and I mean, we did a quick check, our district manager did a quick check, and T&E has never done this kind of rollback before. So, you know, we would have to do a little bit of homework on the whole issue. So if you can do the conditional while we figure the rest of it out, you know, that would be fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm checking on that. Perfect.
No, it was previous rolled back in 2019 for Dough Donuts. There was a resolution where the regulation was changed.
I'll look that up. I mean, it is a different set of facts, but I'll look
Okay.
at it. Yeah. Yeah, we have some donuts. They're not as good as Dough Donuts. Charles, do you have another comment or?
I do. I just want to let the committee know when I walked down to Coates, the sidewalk actually in front of the restaurant, it actually in the middle of the sidewalk actually slopes. So it's actually on a slope. It's not even. So if there was, even though the applicant, I wasn't too sure, if they are going to have also chairs outside the restaurant, that's going to force pedestrians to walk on the slope of the sidewalk, and they're not going to have any space to the even part of the sidewalk, because there's like a big half of it is all sloped down quite a bit, like an actual defined slope. I just want to let you know it's not even, it's not fully, the width of it isn't fully even. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Charles, just to reiterate, the cafe was not a problem during the 4 years of COVID, and the sidewalk cafe were not an issue either. So the slope really didn't affect that.
Now, we didn't get any comments
Oh.
from posting on this either. So, I mean, at least in terms of community response, we haven't gotten anything on this. So.
Also, I just sent the resolution in the chat to everyone, the past resolution from 2019. If you would like to review it.
Great. Anything else on this? No? All right. Thank you. Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome. And we'll be in touch with Coates. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So the next item is these two bus stop applications. So this is mostly a process discussion and less a bus stop discussion. We've been trying to kind of manage the process of review of these for a while now. EJ before had over time kind of adjusted the process so that we were no longer approving or denying these things. We were really just collecting comments from the public to the extent they existed, or members of the committee, putting them into a resolution and saying, you know, back to DOT, like, these are our comments. And in a couple of cases, we had such a big turnout, one recently and one a couple of years ago, that we did actually have a denial, but those are pretty rare. So we were looking for kind of a more efficient way to do this, and we looked at how SLAP does license processes, license applications. Not everything ends up in a resolution that has to go to the board. So what we're proposing, and this is the part where, you know, I'll walk you through it, and then we can talk about if people are comfortable with this or not. But the whole process is triggered when we get a notice letter from DOT. So I copied those around to everybody. I mean, you've seen them before. It's got all the details on, you know, how it'll operate, who the operator is. And then lately, DOT has been including, to the extent that there were any alternatives, how the alternatives were analyzed. So we get that information. And the proposal is, and we've been doing this a little bit lately, but that we then draw up, you know, our standard form posting notice like this. And the applicant posts it, sends us pictures demonstrating that they've posted it. We then email it to local groups, block associations, and we put it on our website, kind of like SLAP does, where we're seeking comment on it with, you know, the outline information that's in the notice. So we've done all that for these two applications. We got no comments, no reaction at all on either of these things. So the idea is that if there are concerns that are raised, we then have the applicant fill out our application form, which gives a little bit more detail on the equipment that they're going to use to service this. You know, it's sort of a clean green component to it. Some more details on whether it's staffed, are they selling tickets, how long is the bus idling for, you know, things like that. It gets into the next level of detail. And, you know, depending on what's in that, we then proceed to a hearing at the next T&E meeting. And that, if that happens, then it could still end with a no comment, or there could be a denial with a summary of the concerns that were raised at the hearing. If there are no concerns raised, which is what's happened with these two applications, what we're proposing is that we just file a no comment letter with DOT. We summarize the facts and just say, you know, the committee has no comment on this. Marissa had a conversation with the DOT. I don't know if it was you, Colleen, but the idea was that that would suffice for DOT's
Yes.
process.
Yes,
So-
we had a conversation.
Yeah, so it would basically end here. There's no comment, you know, we took all these steps. We got the notice letter, it was posted. We emailed the groups, we got to seek comments on our website. Nobody reacted as they did in this case, or didn't. And so we then have a standard form, no comment letter that we would send out. So that's the proposal. I think I had gone back and forth with Brad a little bit a few months ago about the best way to do this. And he said, look, I think T&E should pass a resolution outlining what the process is. We'll attach the application form to it, and then we'll take it to full board. So that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah, I think that's very good. Essentially, when we say no comment, we mean that no concerns of the public were brought to us and we ourselves have had no concerns.
Right. For that case, if we get comments back,
Right.
you know, part
Then
of
we
it
have
is, and it happens with SLAP too. Yeah, okay, we got comments, but do they rise to the level where we need to hold a hearing? You know, so we'll still have a little bit of judgment on that, but yeah. So the idea is we'll have a form of no comment letter and a form of the application, and which I can distribute if they exist. And then we take that to the board for April 10th.
Just to be clear, so we put the posting up, and if nobody emails in the comment, then nobody would have an opportunity to express a comment at a meeting. Is that?
Well, they can call us, they can.
No, I'm
they-
saying it's not gonna be an agenda item. It would never rise to
It
the
would never
agenda
become an
unless-
agenda item.
If people did send comments,
Then
then
it would.
well, it would automatically go to a meeting, or it would just be.
Well, again, I mean, I think the idea was there's some level of judgment, so if we
Right,
get
that's right.
limited comments that,
Yeah.
you know, don't really go to the kind of core issue of this. Then no, I would say, you know, we'd have a no comment, or maybe we would summarize the two comments we got. And just say it's a no comment.
I'm just curious, and Marissa's not here, maybe, I don't know if anybody else knows, but in the in the cases where we did get a lot of community input,
Yeah.
Was that preceded by community emails or phone calls? Or was it just that it showed up? Because I don't want to foreclose people from the ability to make comments. There are very few of these that matter to anybody.
Right.
But every once in a while you have the one behind FIT, that was probably before your time.
Yes, no, that was, yeah,
They
that was
were
one of the big
all
ones,
on.
right. I mean, that's a
Very
huge
close.
residential community. They all came out against it.
Exactly.
And then there was the one building on Seventh Avenue a few months ago where, you know, all the residents of that building came out against it. And those are the only two denials that I can remember.
And I agree, in other ones, there were long discussions, but there was never anything to deny on.
Right.
But so I just wouldn't want to foreclose those people from commenting if they're, you know.
No, I mean, I guess it's a matter of, you know, we're gonna post it and put it on our website, so all of that'll happen, and if we don't get comments then I guess the argument is, you know, why wouldn't we close the process then?
I don't know, I just don't know how comments usually come in.
Yeah, they get emailed in or somebody calls the office or, you know. I mean, it's the same thing with SLAP. I mean, SLAP posts and, you know, lets block associations know on new liquor licenses. And if we don't really hear anything and there's nothing in the application that really raises any concerns, it's not huge. It's not an operator that's had prior issues, you know, whatever's in that list, then there's no hearing and they just get approved. You know.
I just one question specific to the intercity buses. Do we maintain our longtime stance that we want these to go to the Port Authority eventually to birth?
Right, I mean, you know, the language pre-existed the design of the new bus terminal. So there is a intercity bus station, you know, is it gonna be big enough? I guess we'll find out, but so yeah, I mean, and we can put whatever we want to in this. If our standard form says, you know, long-term, our preference is that they go off the street into the Port Authority bus terminal.
I would
That's
support
fine.
some language like that.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Luckily with this applicant, I mean, they're taking over a spot that's been used.
One of them, yeah.
Right.
Right. Yep. Any other,
Just a question, with these two, where were either on the website or in like the monthly email they've been noticed? Cause I'm just like having trouble finding. them.
Oh,
You
it
know what I mean?
it
So I
was
just
like
wanna make sure
6
that-
weeks ago. I
Yeah.
asked Marissa, yeah,
Cause it seems like a big plan and as long as there's like, cause like, even if one of us had a comment, then we could
Yeah.
just email Marissa or you.
yeah.
And ask for it to be brought up, but like.
Yeah, it was posted, I don't know if it was the agenda for our T&E meeting, but it was posted like 2 months ago or something, when this first came up. I'll see if I can find the email from her. But
Yeah, I would just be curious to see what it looks like, because I was like digging around on the website, and like, it wasn't immediately obvious to me, so as long as like, but if it was 2 months ago that it happened, it might be gone by now, so.
Right, yeah, I mean, it should have been under the T&E agenda, which is kind of how SLAP does it. They say, you know, a lot of times they say, we don't have a meeting this month, but we seek input on the following application, so.
Do those things go into an archive once they come off the website? Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments, then I'll pull the package together. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Apologies.
I don't know who was.
That was
speaking.
David Shapiro.
Oh, did you have a comment, David, or?
No, I have something that's separate from this. I thought you were wrapping up the meeting. I apologize.
Yeah, so I'll pull together a draft of what this no comment thing should look like based on what our other no comment things look like. And I'll circulate that around before we go to the board on April 10th.
Do we need a resolution?
Oh, yeah, okay, so we need a resolution.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Does anyone have any questions on what we're voting on?
voting on what's outlined in my, if you wanna, yeah.
What he said.
So, Encore is not here, right? No, he's not here. Oh, I'm wrong. No, I'm on the right thing. All right, Annie,
Yes.
Christopher,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
James Michael,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Samir, yes, Tiffany,
Sorry, yes, yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Zool,
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone? No, all right. Passes 11-0-0-0.
Great, okay. So the last item is, as I mentioned, so Midtown South mixed use, I don't know, I have some background slides if people want more background on what the whole MSMX thing is. Otherwise, our scope is a little more limited, that there is an element of the rezoning process where the community board, working through our council members, has the opportunity to raise certain mitigation measures that need to be funded in order to offset issues that have been identified. And so that's what I copied out and circulated to everybody, the sort of T and E components of that list. It's a pretty long list. But you know, a lot of it is things that we've been talking about in this committee. So if you want to, we can back up, and I've got like some slides that came from DCP's presentation on this a while ago, if people want background on the program. Otherwise, we can just jump right into the discussion of the specific T&E items. Whatever people want to.
I feel like we,
fine with jumping right in.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think we've had a lot of information.
Yeah, okay. I have some paper copies if anybody's. I guess that guy who made the comment about people over 45, I gotta keep one from me.
We don't want
Yeah.
Okay. At the committee meeting.
people over 45.
Don't want.
No, people over 45 are greedy, ageist, and won't let younger people get apartments
Yeah.
in Midtown because they already have their.
And we use
their set.
paper.
Right, is that what he said? Did I get the gist of it there?
That was, I think that was pretty accurate.
You're severely, I don't think you're.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we can walk through these. You know, the big part is what we've been talking about all along. So there are obvious, and you should jump in, Nancy, anytime you want to. There are obvious open space issues in this zone. So one of the things we proposed is moving forward with Broadway Vision. So we had approved the 2-block piece from 38th to 40th. You know, as we mentioned, there's talk of what's going to happen in the bow tie, which actually is outside the MSMX zone. And then Broadway just cuts diagonally through the whole thing. So there's the opportunity to pick up a lot of kind of multi-use green space just by implementing the Broadway Vision program that we've already signed off on.
And the reason there's that sort of, I call it an airport runway in the middle of these 4 quadrants is because that was for the Penn Station GPP, so they conveniently carved that out. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no.
That's so.
Yeah, and it's also, they only picked up the M zones, because if you look at the diagram, there's avenues that aren't included because those are C zoned. So it's literally just the M zones that remained, you know, in a C of the commercial zone. So this was one of the bigger items that we push for a funding commitment to undertake the Broadway Vision program in the MSMX district.
I just came across, as I'm putting my notes together, they're saying that there'll be almost 10,000 new units of housing, right? But the population will only increase by 16,000, is what they say. Does that mean that there's only going to be
1.6 people, yeah, that was the factor.
that was
in the EIS.
that's a factor that doesn't make sense to me. And we have no park with these, no green space, no open space. So I think the numbers are not quite right there, but there'll be many more people coming into the area than that are already there.
I think Andrew Hyatt made, if we gave a specific number of a relationship between population and open space and how that plummets tremendously.
Plummets?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you mean
and that
plummets?
too.
Oh, do you have that?
Yeah,
I think Michael Greeley included in his notes, which followed upon mine from last week's meeting. But
Okay,
there is a specific number regarding open space versus population. And yes, and we also
We don't have
discussed
schools
it,
that can
well, we
do
talked
that.
about the AND hospitals and we talked.
Well,
about
I mean, there are schools and the EIS, which is not our scope. But the EIS said that they'll be up to full capacity within the limits of what's allowed under an EIS. So,
are we talking about schools here too?
yeah, we're not, but
Well, we're not.
it came up. But yes,
Right.
so the zoning has an allowance of like 150,000 feet for a school that wouldn't count against zoning.
So we
But they
can't
also
make
only
families,
identified
none of
one
this
site.
housing can be for families because they can't have children
not
because we
with
can't
children,
educate them.
Yeah.
But they'll all go to private schools. That was all. I'm serious, when the zoning was changed along either side of Sixth Avenue, I was on the board. And they built all, we said, well, we have no schools. Oh, that's okay. They're all gonna go to private schools. That's what we were told.
Right, and they won't require transportation.
And then we'll require transportation or school seats.
Yeah.
Cool. But we don't have, we still are, and I think we finally got that elementary school on 16th Street. Between Sixth and Fifth,
But Andy,
17th Street.
your
rather.
questions are all in the purview of Nancy's committee, and here we're really.
Yeah, we're just
focusing
focused
open
on
space
the
and green
stuff we
space.
do, yeah.
Right.
So the next item is, a setback from the street line, so adequate sidewalk width, which is a minimum of 8 feet. Which also ties into, how the Broadway vision, design works. There's a lot of pedestrian items here in 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7. And 8. Yeah, so all of those 2 through 8 kind of relate to pedestrian zones. I mean, the bigger component is maybe 5, where we're pushing the instead of all the temporary painted on sidewalk pedestrian zones on 7th and 8th, that those should become permanent, especially if we're adding, that number of people in the zone that are going to use those sidewalks on a regular basis. Right now, there are no temporary sidewalk widenings on 6th Avenue. We've gotten complaints, in specific areas where they should be studied, and so we call for that. The side street issue was raised by our assembly members. So you can read through those. The next issue is one that we're still working with in the land use committee, which is that there are zoning bonuses for transit improvement. And for outdoor public space, covered outdoor public space. And the concern was that at the level of floor area ratio, we're talking about 15 or 18, that you wouldn't necessarily need those bonuses. You might not even be able to use the floor area because of other aspects of zoning, like the sky exposure plane. So we were concerned that we wouldn't get the transit improvements or open space that we need. And maybe we need to look in a different direction, which was to borrow the public realm improvement fund concept that existed in the East Midtown zone. So rather than, waiting until somebody, pays to install an ADA elevator in a subway stop, and as part of the normal approval process, they would have to pay into a public realm fund, and then that fund pays for the improvements, whether they would have, been bonusable or not. So we're still working on that in the committee. And then there's more detail on what some of these transportation improvements should be in number 10. So those are really the big moves in the transportation piece. And then Julie in particular worked, I guess, and you, Nancy, on these sustainability items.
Yes,
So,
Julie worked on that.
mean, my only comment in the entire thing, I'll comment here.
Yeah, sure.
My only comment is just the use of the word new bike lanes. But it's just bike lanes and not bike lanes. That's my perspective on,
Yeah.
we already have a lot, and actually, what's interesting is tied to this is the 7th and 8th Avenue area where I think I was over there yesterday, and it's very interesting how all the additional sidewalk space is. And so that's very strong, but then I believe it's 8th Avenue. So I was wondering if we in our jurisdiction.
It's on the west side.
It's the west side of the
Yeah.
8th where the bike lane is. But it's sort of like that area where it's like, when you have the extra pedestrian space, the wider bike lane and then parking, you then get limited down to at points, it's 1 or 2 transit lanes. And it's really narrow. So something for the committee to think about is that potentially more bike lanes horizontally theoretically makes sense, but when you're talking about these, I'm very concerned about how congested the north-south corridors are already, and if that another 10,000, 60,000, 100,000 residents, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Especially with, I mean, honestly, if it's market-based housing, you're gonna be adding people with cars, whether we like it or not. So.
Yeah, well,
Just
70% of it will be market rate, so.
And we'll get tolls from them for entering the zone.
Yeah.
So we.
Which
more
is bad.
space.
Hopefully, actually, April
For the
21st.
zone, they can't.
Yeah, more space to pull.
Any other questions or comment? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I live on Second Avenue and I watch the traffic going by in the morning and in the evening, going through the tunnel on the east side. And I also frequent the west side quite often, 7th, 8th and 9th Avenue. And I've noticed a marked decrease in the amount of automobiles that are want through our area. Matter of fact, even today, the headline in one of the papers was how successful it's been, this price thing with the Kathy Hopeful, and you probably noticed it as well. So I think that part of the worry about the additional vehicular traffic is maybe to be examined before we get upset about it.
Just a clarification, because I'm not sure I read this right. Number 4 on the third
It's a little louder.
in number 4 on the third line, I just want to make sure I'm reading it right. It says sidewalks must become wide at one level, not a 2-level pedestrian area. So we're talking about at one level, meaning the regular sidewalk level,
Yeah,
and the whole wide area has a curb.
yeah, there were different authors for different pieces of this, but
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
that was the idea, not the painted in pedestrian, but.
Not the nightmare thing.
Oh, yeah, hardscaping, yeah.
Thank you.
So you're not looking for a resolution from T&E supporting, is that what you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, I think, why not?
Okay.
If we could present a unified fund across a number of committees, T&E, because what DCP says is Broadway is not in scope.
Right.
It's not in scope. It's taken out of scope. So, and this is DOT. We're Department of City Planning. Has nothing to do with us. So that's why we need this resolution. And that's why I was asking Colleen about what is our strategy to move forward with this.
So the resolution you would want to see from this committee
Yes.
is that we've reviewed the transportation and environment related components of I mean, in this case, it's really of the points of agreement.
Right.
And we are supportive.
Right.
And then this whole thing is gonna come up on April 10th.
Well, these are all things, yeah, these could go into a resolve that we support these things. And
We really want to get into the weeds of open space and green space.
Yeah, well, which is all.
we need a park. I mean, people need a park. It's unhealthy. It's not a livable, healthy community without a park.
it is a
And
deleterious.
it's unfair,
unhealthy
and it's
community.
unfair to offer housing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the
And it's
larger
a
document gets
concrete
into
jungle.
crime and schools
Yeah, yeah.
and everything, you know, that we don't
no,
cover.
but within the scope of this committee, it would be very useful to really get deep into the weeds of, you know, how deleterious it is not to have green space, not to.
So I guess the question is, can we vote on a resolution that states these things?
If we're gonna vote on it, I have a specific question.
Okay.
Should I ask it now?
Yeah, sure.
For point number 9, I just want to make sure I understand. So the existing, what is it called? The Midtown East Public Realm Improvement thing. They get money when there's an air rights transfer. Is that right?
I don't remember now.
I think it's like when you,
I don't know, it's a model after that, but we could set it up however
Okay.
we want.
Okay.
I mean, the point is, what we want to do is we want all of these developers to commit to putting in money in a fund, right? I don't recall what it is,
Yeah,
because it was a while
okay,
ago.
but
we
we're not,
did
we're not
this.
being specific that we want it to be modeled exactly the same way. We just want some sort of, when something happens, money goes into a fund and then. that
Because
can be
the problem that we have
Mhm.
in this, with this zoning, if I may explain, is there's such an abundance
Mhm.
of FAR
Mhm.
that the likelihood of developers
Mhm.
to use the transfer of development rights from historic properties is extremely low. There's
Yes.
no incentive to do it. They will end up having more FAR than they
do
know what
lot
to do
merger
with,
systems.
which is a problem for our historic properties, and we have a lot of them.
Mhm.
And you gave the example of the Serbian Cathedral, right, on 25th Street.
And this has been raised many, many times. I think
Right,
people
so
have the flat
we're
eye
concerned
on it.
about, and I know you support as much FAR as possible, but that is hurting,
Mhm.
that would hurt something like the transfer of development rights.
I
And
guess I'm
that,
just trying to
and
understand.
that's
like-
coming from the,
Right,
some experts who are housing developers such as David Sigmund.
right. I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, if we support this entire document, including point number 9, I just want to make sure I understand like what exactly we're asking for in point number 9. Because to me, right now, it's not clear.
We're asking for a mechanism, so it is a little vague. We do want a mechanism to deal with this.
Okay, but we're not being prescriptive about what the mechanism is. Is that,
And I think, and I don't think we have to have that initially, right, David?
No, yeah, we're still figuring it out. I'm
Still
trying to
figuring it
find a good definition of the fund.
Have we ever had a designated member from CB5 of the Public Realm Committee?
Yes, I am.
yes.
Oh, no.
But this is East Midtown was written, it's a very different legislation, but I'd have to look back through it.
I mean, I'm
not
happy
prepared.
to support everything as written, including that one. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
If it was like, we want it to be exactly the
Yeah,
same.
it can't
only
be
for
exactly the
landmark
same
and-
No,
because
very-
the
no,
transit improvements
Yeah.
in East Midtown basically got funded
Right.
the way they were intended to.
Right.
We're just not sure that's gonna happen in MSMX because we don't think people are gonna need the
Got it.
bonus area.
Okay.
So,
I mean, we had to add stairs and,
Right.
and, all kinds of, we were bringing in thousands of day workers.
Yeah.
Into Grand Central, and there wasn't enough places for people to get in and out of
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to support this entire document. I think it's great. I think the only question I had for anyone on the committee is was there anything that people would want to add? I like really read through it and like racked my brain to think of additional ideas. I couldn't come up with any. But if there are things people wanted to add, I'd love to hear them.
let me get Neil. Yeah, Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, just on that point, and this was at a earlier meeting where I think the city presented, where DCP presented to the land use committee in February. I asked about a fund, whether it could be possible to fund just general improvement of the transit system, not necessarily tied to a geography. I was told that was illegal, which is too bad. If, it would be great if there could be some mechanism to do that. Given that.
Yeah, I mean, the mechanism here is, I think it expanded, it's usually a 500-foot radius around the rezoning area. And here it's a 1,500-foot radius. So it really picks up every single subway station that's gonna serve the area. And there are a lot of them, and the list, you know, you saw in here is pretty long. So
If it could go somehow to like, you know, and this is probably not legal, but just to improving the transit system overall so that more people take transit in and it works better. But and the only other question I had was just on page 3, or the second to last item, number 4 mentions super tall towers and occupants in buildings that neighbor super talls. I was just wondering what the rationale for, yeah, the second to last item
Section 2.
on page 3.
That's emergency management.
Yeah,
that's what he's asking
Yeah, I
about.
was curious what the thinking or rationale was for specifically super tall towers and occupants in buildings that neighbor super tall towers.
You know, start with an 18 FAR and then you add bonuses on top of it, you can get to a 21.5 or something. And on larger sites, you know, we were showing buildings that theoretically could be 1,500 feet tall or something, so. Which they exist elsewhere in the city, but here, you know, you might have a number of these things in proximity, and so this was an issue that came up just in, you know, good planning for the
So what
existence of
was
the.
the emergency response? So like, you know, I'm in a building that's 39 stories tall, which I guess doesn't count as super tall.
On the 50th floor, someone has a heart attack and the emergency management can't get up there because the elevator isn't working properly, or someone takes their electric scooter to their apartment and it catches fire. Now you've got a fire 1,500 feet up in the air. These are issues that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you work in an office building, what is it, once a year or twice a year, you have an emergency response, you have to go out in the hall. And you don't do that in apartment buildings, but if we're gonna have apartment buildings that could be 80, 90, 100 stories, like maybe it makes sense to do things like that. So I think
Are
the
you gonna
idea
have a
is,
fire drill and go down 100 flights of stairs?
yeah, I hope
I
not.
don't think so.
Yeah,
What happens is the
That's a
firefighters
health
have
plan for.
stairs and carry you down the stairs.
yeah. So I think the idea was to just have a body that, or at least coordination of these issues.
Oh,
Chris,
It could be exterior cleaning or repair
Right.
of buildings as well, new and existing.
I think Christopher
Yeah,
had, did you?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Oh yeah, my only comment was just, I feel like this issue applies equally to whether it's tall or super tall, you know, like a lot of the same issues apply. 40
Okay.
versus 60 stories, but I don't have any other problems, you know, any other concerns with what's written here.
Christopher.
Street material, I was just wondering, like, is it okay to ask for like less asphalt, more removable bricks?
Porous pavers.
Yeah, permeable things.
Permeable asphalt.
I mean, at least certainly on side
Sure.
streets. I mean, there are plenty of side streets on this. I just the other day, I'll be anecdotal in my comment. I was woken by someone spreading asphalt on like a repair on the street, and I was like, no, I have to leave the room. I can't sleep. I have to change the sheets. Everything is like awful because the stench of the asphalt was like ruining everything. And I was like, if we just used like, you know, paver blocks, this would not be an issue. And we wouldn't have to have all this heavy equipment brought in all the time. It wouldn't pollute as often as we do. It's incidentally cheaper, you know, in the long run, if you look at like studies of the Netherlands, where they use these kinds of blocks. And I was wondering if we could just add somewhere like, you know, wherever possible and use removable street material and permeable.
Right. Okay.
Substances.
Yeah. I just had one more thing in response to what some of you brought up in terms of additional questions. I think we really covered a lot of questions, but I think really the big one remains is the FAR in respect to how that may hurt our landlords.
But that's not our.
That'll be.
Come to the land use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Fifth Avenue included in this at all?
No.
Because it's the edge of the building.
Yes, because Fifth, you know, already has that C zone all the way down, so it starts west of that, yeah. Okay, David?
No, I'm sorry, I'm sort of just fly on the wall here on the transportation meeting, but I guess the question I have is, I'm surprised at the pushback on tall buildings in the transportation meeting. And I guess I understand the concerns around fire, life safety and making sure that folks can get safe, but I don't see how that should stop us from building tall buildings. I mean, the Flatiron Building was the first skyscraper in New York City, and I'm sure they had some discussions about fire, life safety, but those were solved through zoning and or building regulations. And so I just,
We're not, there's no pushback on tall buildings, and in fact, this committee doesn't talk about what the floor area ratios are or anything else. I mean, I think this was in response to a specific concern of having a number of these buildings in a particular zone, which lies within our community board, and safety concerns related to that, but not a pushback to not do them in the first place. It's not even in our scope. So.
It's not in our scope, but
There isn't even pushback, I don't think, in the land use committee. I mean,
No,
not on, on tall buildings.
There was contextuality, and so the thought
Yeah.
was that taller buildings on the avenues and not so much.
Just when it was in relationship to emergency management and the fire department in New York and what their thoughts and their concerns are on tall and super tall buildings.
They can't.
That's what it's about.
How high can they reach? They can only reach.
But we had examples. of
Buildings have to be
land,
fully
1,500.
sprinkled, but things can still.
Oh, you mean how high can
Yeah.
a ladder reach?
Yeah.
Yeah, not that high.
No.
Not that high.
Like 30.
Maybe 6 stories, maybe 9 at the most, but probably not more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not voting on it, it doesn't matter, but historically, we have taken a position, this committee's taken a position against super talls from an environmental perspective, because of the shadows, the blocking of light.
Well, we're dealing with that in land use and not
Right,
here.
so if it's not in our scope, then it's nothing common, it's not in what we're voting.
Okay.
January.
And yeah, just like, not to be the horse, but it just sounds like it's more like.
That's a different committee.
Yeah, we're.
That was transportation,
Yeah.
that was like,
Yeah, but it's like
50 years ago.
That could be the fun committee.
But we're just
Yeah.
planning for the inevitability of this, it's like, and just how does it impact? the trans- But I don't think there's any.
We're gonna make a logo of it.
Elevators, transportation.
So really, other than Christopher's addition, I mean, it's really to take the language in, like whatever, number 1 or number 2, and add the concept that it's not just the buildings themselves, but it's also streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nature-based solutions, passive guys, that is climate responsive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead of just, I think this is just kind of in the context
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the buildings,
More
that we're
specific
saying
about
about
permeability.
streets as well.
Also replacing asphalt with like
Yes.
With pavers.
Yeah.
paver stones. I mean, that's just good for maintenance. I mean, you could send 2 guys out to fix something as opposed to like a truck and all this horrible stuff.
That's probably even whoever is changing their procedures, and probably most of those are vendors.
Okay. So
Should we take it to a vote?
take it to a vote.
So want to make a motion?
Did you finish eating?
I'm not yet.
Oh, well, we'll
Second.
wait.
Okay, so we're voting on these set of items and including one from Christopher's suggestion about permeable asphalt, replaceable
not asphalt.
pavers.
Yeah.
Sorry, all that. right?
Promote where functionally possible, because you can't do it over
Right,
something.
where appropriate or whatever. Okay. Annie,
Yeah.
Christopher,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
there's Michael,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Mary, yes, Tiffany,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Zoll,
Yes.
Joel.
I don't know what the right term is, but I'm not entitled.
Okay, present, not intended. All right, great.
Present not entitled, is that what it is?
Yeah, present, not intended.
Present not entitled.
Great, so it passes 10 yes, 0 no, 1 P&E, present not entitled, and 0 abstentions.
All right.
How does this work in terms, like, will this still come to the full board as a separate vote? Or will it be subsumed by the land use resolution?
Well, it should be a separate vote, yes.
So we'll present it, we'll present the bus stop thing and this.
Okay.
And then I guess land use will step up and say, okay.
I think you should go
See, the
either way.
point of this one is sidewalk and Broadway as a park. And that's out of the scope of land use, housing and zoning. We don't touch that.
Right,
So-
but I just want to
so
make sure
it
when we're,
puts it together,
right,
and
when
we
we're-
don't deal with sidewalks either.
I just want to make sure when we send our feedback to DCP, this is included.
Well, it has to go to it has to go to DOT.
Yes, but points of agreement would be negotiated between DCP and.
No, point of agreement negotiated between council member and the mayor.
Got it.
Yeah.
And one elected, I won't mention too, because I don't know, is very supportive of Light Slip Park.
Got it.
The linear park throughout.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Curious.
I'm excited by that.
All right, anything else? Anybody want a donut?
I'll take one.
All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Was it part of, and I don't know folks who have been on the board for a few years now. I live on 16th Street and I live across from Xavier High School, and they have teacher parking that has taken over kind of one side of the road. Is that something that was put into place during COVID?
No, it's been there for years, yeah. And it's on 15th Street also.
No, but that's new. It wasn't here when I first moved into the apartment. That's not something that we handled here on the board, on the board.
We could, I mean, I've only been here since 21, so it didn't happen since then, so.
Yeah, it happened in 2020, I believe, but I'm just curious how a non-public New York City public school has the ability to get parking on the street.
It's been there forever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the history of it related to the project that the church did with the apartment building and the renovation of the church. And so all of the parking was kind of rejiggered during that process.
I would ask Colleen, but I've never seen, and I've been here a lot longer than David, but an application come to us for
I've never
police
seen
parking,
either.
fire department parking, teacher parking, public school or private school.
Nothing comes up.
There's other ones, doctor
But
parking.
private schools are able to get parking?
Yeah, I mean, there was a restriction there before, as I understand it, that was like school days only. And I guess, and hours. And so there was a lot of confusion. People were parking in the spots when they shouldn't have been. And so the school pushed to broaden it to just be a no parking zone. So I think if there was, that was the change at the time. I don't know when that occurred. I don't know that it came here, yeah.
I don't remember ever seeing.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
The no parking school days is in front of all private schools.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great meeting. Tristan.
Yes.
Can't leave without.
That's kind of a question.
People
People coming on and stuff.
Yes.
You know, I don't do typing and shit. Okay. So I want to tell you.